What's going on, you guys? It's your Huggable Hipster here, and welcome back to Soulsborne Academy. Grab your seat, let's get to it, and don't mind the hunters, they are just here for your protection. So in today's Soulsborne Academy, we're going to be diving into world tendency and character tendency, something that I think a lot of you might need help with, and I am here to help you understand both of those things. So a lot of you are probably going to say, Ariel, you literally just started playing Demon Souls. How is it that you feel you are qualified enough to tackle world and character tendency? I think it's just because that I researched it very early on in the game, and I really wanted to understand what the world and character tendency is. And it is a much more advanced version of what the karma system is in any other games like Fallout, for example. So when you have a karma system, you're basically saying, okay, I have the tendency to become good, or I can become bad, sometimes a little bit of in between. And with Fallout, for example, you really don't have the option to be anything in between. You're either just good or bad. That's it. So when I'm talking about tendencies, this is what I'm talking about. Actually, no, it'll probably be over here. This is what I'm talking about when I say different tendencies. Now, when you have a character tendency and your world tendency, they are two completely different things from what I've gathered and from the knowledge that I have learned. Now, when it comes to world tendencies, there are several different types of world tendencies that you can have, which is why I think this game really utilizes tendencies in the karma system absolutely brilliantly. So you have pure white, white, neutral, neutral, black, black, and pure black. The pure white is the best tendency that you can get in the world that you are in. If you have a pure black, you're going to get more difficult enemies. Even the NPCs, their behaviors and certain like little mannerisms that they have will start to shift. And it's something that I noticed whenever I saw different playthroughs of this game, of where you have an NPC that tries to help you, that NPC will no longer help you if the world leans more towards a black tendency. Which I think this is really interesting. I think this is a better way to do a karma system because there's more in-betweens. It has more of a variance like humanity does. You can be all good, you can be all bad, you can be somewhat good, you can be somewhat bad. There's so many different ways that you can approach Demon Souls, and I think that is the brilliant part about it. Now, when you start off in the game, your character tendency, when it comes to both the character tendency and the world tendency, are completely neutral to start off with. You can go from there to make it black or white or however you see fit. There are several good deeds that you can do within the worlds that you are in to shift it to that pure kind of goldish white tendency that you saw in the very beginning of the picture that I showed. So one of those is taking care of the dragon that you see early on in the game, of where like every chance that you cross that bridge over to the Tower Knight, you will see that dragon literally flambe everyone. There's a way to get to that. I actually just beat that dragon on my own. I didn't record it or anything like that because I wanted to see how the world tendency shifted. Right now, I'm in a white tendency. So I pushed that over into a more so white tendency. I could start to see like a little bit of a gold tinge for that world. Each archstone that you go to, since there are 5 of them, they will have their own tendency. So if you go to Boletaria, it has its own tendency. If you go to the area of defilement, it will have its own tendency. If you go to where the fool's idol is, it will have its own tendency. Now, let's say hypothetically you do either by accident or on purpose go towards more of a black tendency world in all of the archstones. What you'll find is a lot of the enemies will go aggro a lot quicker. So let's say, for example, you go into the second archstone and what were seemingly harmless enemies that just really didn't have anything to do with you. If you went past them, they wouldn't go aggro. If you look at these guys the wrong way, they will go aggro. But with white tendency, the opposite is true, whereas your HP is at its max, the enemies won't be difficult at all, and you have a lot more room to explore and work with things, and you won't die as often either. Unless you're me and you just die every single chance because you're a complete klutz and you fall over things and you just do the death consistently. But it depends on what degree the world is in. If you're going more neutral, if you're going more off-white, if you're going more beige, like whichever degree the world is in, that will also affect what drops you get from certain enemies as well. Now, this is what I found to be the most interesting thing. When you defeat a boss in any of the worlds, it shifts to white. It always shifts to white. When you defeat a boss, when you defeat something that is causing havoc, wreaking havoc, I should say, in one of the archstones, the tendency will always shift to white for the world. When you are in body form, now this is the part that I really want you guys to take away from this. When you are in body form and you die as a human in one of the worlds, that tendency will shift to black. This is why whenever you're in the Nexus in your human body form, you always want to die in the Nexus and turn into your soul form. That way it doesn't affect the world tendency. That's one thing to keep in mind. If you are wondering, oh, why is everybody killing themselves off in the Nexus? That's why, because whenever you die in human form in any of the Archstones, it will shift that world's tendency, and I believe your character tendency as well, to black. Also, keep in mind, whenever you go and you are leaning more towards a pure black tendency, you will see different demons that will start to appear as well. So for example, you know, if you're going towards pure black and a demon appears, if you kill that demon, it will shift back to white because you did a good deed, and it's shifting the tendency back to a normal homeostasis. So it's really interesting the way that I wouldn't even call it a karma system. I would just say what the tendencies are within this world, because it is karma, but it isn't, if that makes sense. And also, just as a side note, I just want to briefly mention that your actions will never affect another archstone, meaning that if you do one thing in one archstone that leads more towards black and one archstone is white, one archstone cannot affect the other. So it's not kind of like an overall equation. Each archstone is completely individual and they do not overlap at all, which, you know, whatsoever. So if you do one good thing in one archstone and an evil thing in another, like each archstone will be affected. So you don't have to worry about that. So if you have one archstone that is like this shiny beacon of hope and ray of sunshine that poops rainbows like that, you can have that, but you could also have one that is just this complete decaying mess of unholy-isness. So, you know, one does not affect the other, and I feel like I needed to mention that because so many people get confused on if world tendencies in each archstone affect the other, and no, they do not. So now, since I am still new to Demon Souls, and since I do still have a lot of learning to do, here's the simplest way that I can break down, to close off this video, the difference between character tendency and world tendency. So just keep in mind that character tendency has to do with the actions that you perform as a character, like killing off different NPCs if you want to go towards more pure black, or, you know, saving different NPCs, or helping, you know, different players with invaders. That can lead you more towards a pure white. So the more good deeds that you do as a character, the more white of, like, a more white tendency you are going to have. The more wrongdoings that you do, the more that you go into co-op as a phantom player, that kind of stuff, the more your character tendency will go to black. And when it comes to world tendency, the more good deeds and actions that you perform in the world will lead you more towards a pure white, more good type of character. The more that you just don't care and you don't really, you know, fuss around with the world, and you're not really doing that many good deeds to help the world recover, the more you will lean towards a black tendency. So I feel like, with all of this being said, this is by far the best karma system that I've ever seen implemented in a video game. I'm not sure how it is different from the PS3 version to now the PS5 version, because I never played Demon Souls when it first came out, so I'm not sure about that. But you guys, that is it for me. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm actually really happy that I can now add Demon Souls to the roster for Soulsborne Academy. I absolutely love it so far. It's probably, so far, the easiest Souls game I have ever played besides Dark Souls 3. Like that, like besides 2 bosses in Dark Souls 3, that game was just hella easy. But you guys, I hope you all enjoyed this video, and if you guys like my face and what I do, please be sure to subscribe and hit that bell down below. I make videos every day here on YouTube. May you find your worth in the waking world, dear hunter. Stay casually nerdy, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye, you guys.